Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is the Sentinel watching over Geekdom, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Our look at the Six and Charlie arc continues with Patient Zero, released in August of 2009, written by Nicholas Briggs and Mark Platt, and directed by Nicholas Briggs and Lisa Bowerman. Patient Zero stars Colin Baker as the Doctor and India Fisher as Charlie Pollard. Also featured in the cast are Michael Maloney, Jess Robinson, and Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. As always, there is a blanket spoiler warning in place because as I go through this review, I may end up talking spoilers. But since I'm unscripted, we won't know till we get there, so this is pretty much the only warning you're gonna get. And right off the bat, I'd like to apologize if this review comes off as rushed or anything like that, because, funny story. I try to pace these a week apart, and because I uploaded The Condemned on a Tuesday, I try to upload all of them every Tuesday. So, funny thing, I recorded this one, I think a few days in advance, I don't think quite a week, and I had it ready to go. But, as I watched the video again, I realized I left out something important I wanted to talk about. So I open up my editor, I record a quick segment to add into it, I edit them together, and then when I go to publish it, the new video only captured that additional segment I captured, meaning everything else I recorded was lost. Needless to say, I'm a little livid about that, so I basically have to start over from scratch and do this again. But anyway, aside from that, on to Patient Zero, which, now that I've actually had time to stew on it, and I'm not just doing it right after finishing it, this is actually a really good story. I enjoy this one a lot. And those are the basic thoughts. Now into the specifics. So, what's the story here? Well, this story picks up right after the Rain Cloud Man leaves off. The Doctor is basically admonishing Charlie for her attempt to use that time machine in the end of the Rain Cloud Man. It picks up right from that scene. And when he confronts her about it, Charlie suddenly collapses. This is the start of a story arc in the Six and Charlie arc. These last three stories we're going to be talking about, called the Mila Trilogy. And the Mila. We meet Mila, obviously, because, like I said, I'm calling this the Mila Trilogy. And Mila's interesting, but I don't think, at least in her introduction here, she's fully realized. And so, Mila's story is she was a prisoner of the Daleks, and she was experimented on and infected with this virus that the Daleks were planning to use to turn everyone in the galaxy into a Dalek. But it didn't quite work, and she was continually experimented on and tortured until she escaped, and where she found the Doctor and hid out in the TARDIS. I believe the dialogue suggests this was during the chase. It's a first Doctor story and Ian and Barbara's final story. But yeah, and she's been hiding in the TARDIS ever since, but because of how she was experimented on, she is so messed up that she can't be seen really on this plane of existence. It's really complicated. So yeah, she's hidden out in the TARDIS all this time, but she's never been seen. I'm going to circle back to Mila in a minute because there's more to talk about with her in this story. Meanwhile, Charlie suddenly gets very sick and the Doctor puts her in the Zero Room. And when she comes to, she's worried the Doctor is still mad at her, and then the Doctor says, that was years ago. And obviously very concerned for Charlie, he takes her. The TARDIS winds up in a virus containment station. And the Doctor hopes he can treat her. Which I will say, one of my favorite parts of this story is Colin Baker's performance. Colin Baker never gives a bad performance. Even when the scripts are bad, even when the story is bad, he always gives it his all. And oftentimes, in those bad stories, his performance is often the best part of it. Compared to some of the other Doctors where you can tell they just don't care. But yeah, here Colin Baker gives a great performance, and it's only boosted by the strong material he's given. There's a lot of scenes where he gets really passionate, and I love when the Sixth Doctor gets passionate. Like, one of my favorite scenes is in Trial of a Time Lord, episode 1 of The Ultimate Foe, when he calls out the Time Lords on their corruption. I love those moments with the Sixth Doctor. And he has quite a few moments like this, like when he shows concern for Charley towards the end of the story, or when he's trying to explain what the Daleks are. Speaking of, the Daleks are in this story, and they are used to great effect here. This coming from someone who is not a fan of the Daleks. I don't dislike them, I just don't care for them. But yeah, the Daleks are used to great effect here, and we are introduced to a new type of Dalek, and this was the reason I was most excited for this story, and this reason was pretty much the driving force behind me getting this entire story arc. We meet a new Dalek here called the Dalek Time Controller. And I first heard the Dalek Time Controller in the finale of the 8th Doctor Adventures. He was the main antagonist of the 2-part finale, Lucy Miller to the Death. And he is my favorite Dalek. The Dalek Time Controller is my favorite Dalek. And honestly, along with the Alex McQueen Master, the Dalek Time Controller is one of the driving reasons that, if I ever do, would be why I'd get the 8th Doctor story arc, Dark Eyes. Because the Dalek Time Controller comes back in that. Even though I've heard lukewarm to negative things about Dark Eyes. But neither here nor there. And I love the Dalek Time Controller because it's such a different kind of Dalek. Like, let me see if I can explain this. The Daleks are very straightforward in how they operate, you know? They're very blunt, they're very shoot first, ask questions never. And often, when the Doctor encounters them, they are working to a plan of some sort, and it's just figuring out what the plan is. You know, it's fighting the Daleks while trying to piece together what they're doing. And once the Doctor figures out what they're doing, it's stopping them. That is not the case with the Dalek Time Controller. While they're still working to a plan, the Doctor is now facing a Dalek who thinks. The Dalek Time Controller is basically a Dalek strategist. And, you know, the Dalek Time Controller thinks, he plots. He sort of plays this chess match against the Doctor. And when he realizes a plan is not working, the Dalek Time Controller will change the plan. You know, so now, because it's not Davros, we now have a Dalek who can sort of play against the Doctor rather than just sticking to their guns in the hopes that their plan will work. And I love Nicholas Briggs' performance. I don't think it's as strong as his performance in Lucy Miller to the Death, but it's still really good. It's still really chilling. And surprisingly, this story has a very small, intimate cast, which I think works well. We have the Doctor, Charley, the Daleks, Mila, and only one other character, sort of the supervisor of this station, a man named Fradolin, I think it was. And Fradolin, as introduced, is I think he's called a Chographin. They only say his species' name like twice. Essentially, Fradolin is a humanoid amoeba. At least, that's what my imagination depicts him as. He's able to split himself off into an identical copy that he calls familiars, and these familiars go about maintaining the station, doing their own duties, and if Fradolin needs information, they can join back together. This is a good idea, and I think it's used fairly well. Plus, the actor is really good at performing it, you know? Like, He's able to give each of the familiars a different personality, or when a Dalek kills them, just the pain Fradlin feels. It's a good performance. It's a good character. I'm going to circle back to the Mila plot real quick before I talk about anything else. A couple of things happen in quick succession, so yeah. Anyway, back to Mila. So, as Charlie gets sick, we learn that it was Mila who infected Charlie with this virus, because first of all, on paper, I like Mila. She's sort of written as this dark reflection, this dark mirror of what Charlie is. They're not opposites. Everything Charlie is, Mila isn't, and vice versa. It's more everything Charlie is, Mila is to a darker degree. So, for example, Charlie has this adoration, this love for the Doctor, whereas with Mila, it's an obsession. And I think the performance is okay on that part. I don't think it's quite strong here. Then again, it is only her introduction, so I'm sure that's sort of what it is. It's just some growing pains. But what happens is Mila infects Charlie with this virus, and they begin switching places. Mila begins taking on a more tangible physical form, and Charlie begins fading out of existence. And, until Mila sort of takes over Charlie's spot. And India Fisher's performance from that point on is great, because she does great at sort of copying the mannerisms and the inflections that Jess Robinson had when she played Mila, She has that faux naivete. And although it's interesting, because the first time when I listened to this, it was like, when she took over, did Mila forget who she was? And there's a couple of scenes that show she didn't, and even in the next story, it shows she didn't. So, and again, India Fisher just gave a good performance there. And then, where do I want to go from there? The other plot point I want to talk about is the Virans. All because, as I said, the Doctor arrives on this virus containment station, and what happened prior to the Daleks showing up and everything going nuts, is the Virans were supposed to come and take all the viruses in this station from Fradlin and destroy them. And then the Daleks showed up because they want the viruses for biological warfare. And throughout this entire story, there is this build-up to the Virans. They're constantly referred to. They're built up. Fradlin obviously has sort of a fear of them. And there is a very, very minor character at the very beginning of the story delivering the virus. And even he is afraid of them. And he's never met the Virans. First of all, it's a cool design. The Virans are on the cover with the Daleks. It's a very interesting design, but other than that, when they do finally show up, their reveal is really underwhelming. It's like, that's it. And it's fairly disappointing. But there is some interesting things about it, like even though Charlie has faded out of this plane of existence, the Virans can still see her. And that also brings up something interesting, because I thought they were going to play a bigger role, and I think they still do, because let me show you. The final and I'm not considering this a spoiler because it's on the cover. The final story of the Six and Charlie arc is Blue Forgotten Planet. And if you can see, there's a Viran on the cover. So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that and seeing what's playing out there. And then the final thing I kind of want to talk about is the ending. I love this ending. The Doctor comes up with a plan to stop the Daleks. Basically, he sets their ship to explode, and because of their point in where they are in time, the Daleks are preventing the explosion, because for whatever reason, I'm not sure it's quite explained, The Daleks are trying to be careful about this. They're trying to preserve this station because of something with the web of time. And like I said, I don't think it's explained. But then the Dalek time controller realizes, because they picked up samples of these various viruses in the time vortex, as if they were displaced by an explosion. And he realizes that it's his ship's destruction that releases those viruses. And so when it first happens, you look at the timestamp and you're like, there's still 10 minutes left of this? And then those 10 minutes, this ending turns into easily the best part of the story. Which is something I wanted to talk about. The atmosphere from this story is great. From the very beginning, there is so much tension, and it's maintained so well throughout the entire story. And at the end of the story, Charley is still missing. She's still lost, and Mila is still in her place. So overall, Patient Zero is a really good story with strong writing and great performances. I think most of my issues are minor, almost bordering on nitpicks. And I'm going to give Patient Zero a 9 out of 10. So join me next week when the Doctor and Mila, still posing as Charley, will once again meet another old foe. This time, the Draconians, as we look at paper cuts. So that was Patient Zero. What did you think? Start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And then click the little bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. In the description box below, you'll find the link to my Ko-fi where you can help support the channel and help it to grow. And you'll find the link to my Twitter where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is the Sentinel, watching over Geekdom, and I'll see you guys next time.